everybody, and welcome again to Cooking on a Budget with Christine. Today I'm going to be making some sweet scones and also showing you how you can turn this recipe into a savoury scone recipe that is suitable to serve with all the soups that I've been making recently. So first of all, the most important thing is to switch your oven on to 200 degrees. To make your scones you've got 5 simple ingredients. 1 egg, a teaspoonful of baking powder, 4 tablespoons of Greek yogurt. Now it's very important with this recipe that you use a full fat yogurt. So it doesn't matter if you have ordinary yogurt or Greek yogurt, but it really must be full fat. Some sugar and some flour. Now I measured out, I know a lot of people don't have scales, so I measured out the flour. So the flour is 1.5 mugs full. And the sugar is 1 tablespoonful. So we're going to start and measure out 250 grams of flour. Then we're going to add to it, very noisy this morning, aren't I? Going to add to it 1 teaspoonful of baking powder. Now the flour is already self-raising flour, which is ordinary cake flour, which already has a raising agent in it. But to be honest, I like to add a little bit extra as well. So taking a spoon, just mix your baking powder into your flour. Just give it a thorough mix so that it's evenly mixed. And then I'm going to add 1 tablespoonful of sugar. I'm just going to sprinkle that in and again mix it thoroughly. So that's all our dry ingredients in the bowl ready to go. So take 1 beaten egg, which I have in my bowl here, and I'm going to add to it 1 tablespoonful of yogurt, and then I'm going to mix it together. Now this is the start of what I call the wet ingredients. Now we are actually going to use 4 tablespoons full of yogurt, but first of all I'm just going to start off with the 1. I'm going to take my flour. I'm going to make a little well in my flour, that's a little hole in the middle of the flour there. And I'm going to add my yogurt and my egg. I find a fork is the easiest thing to use for this. Now, what you really must make sure that you do with scones is treat them very delicately, because otherwise they're going to turn out like lead. So just mix in your egg like that. Now you can see that's taken up that very quickly. So I'm going to add another tablespoonful of yogurt and keep going like that. So that mixes it in. Again, it's still very, very dry. So that's 2 tablespoons so far. So I'm just going to add the other 2 tablespoons full of yogurt. You can see I'm adding quite a bit, a good dollop of yogurt. So that's basically our mixture. And what we're going to do is just mix it together now until it's all bound together. Now, this is where sometimes, to be honest, I much prefer to get my hand in and use it my hand. So just gently mix it all in. You'll notice that you've got little bits of flour at the bottom. It's very important that you incorporate those. This is great fun, kids, if any of you are watching at home. It's great. It's just like working with Play-Doh. Mix it all in again, very, very gently. And I can still see a little bit of flour at the bottom, so I just need to keep going until I have that all mixed in. Now you can see today I still have a tiny little bit of flour in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more yogurt. I've obviously been a little skimpy this time. And just add a little bit more yogurt until it has taken up all the flour at the bottom there. So that's it, nice now. Oh, that'll do fine. Now you can see I've got messy fingers, so excuse me coughing, try and get that done. Now, sometimes when you go into coffee shops, you'll find that on the bottom of your scone, it's absolutely covered in flour. And the reason it's covered in flour is because whoever's been making your scones has what I would call dusted their work surfaces too vigorously with flour. So first of all, we're going to take our baking tray, which we're going to put our scones on, and we're going to give it a light dusting. Now, no matter how non-stick your baking trays are, you'll find that your scones are inclined to stick to your baking tray. So as you can see, not very much flour on the baking tray. I'm going to set that aside for a minute. I'm going to take a little bit of flour, just very, very lightly sprinkled, and I'm going to get my cutter. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of flour there at the side, because it's very important when you're using your cutter that you dust your cutter so that it doesn't stick to your scones. Now, that's my scone mixture. It looks lovely, doesn't it? A lot of people here would now take a rolling pin and roll that, but I don't roll my scones simply because it does take the air out of them and it does stop them rising. So what you're going to do is you're just going to pat your scone mix down. If you've got any little bits that are broken, just pat it gently. That bit there, I'm going to remove that. Pat it down gently, and then it needs to be about 2 centimetres thick to get the right size scone. So we should be able to get 8 scones out of this. So we're going to take our cutter, I'm going to dust it, and just press your cutter straight down. Give it a little bit of a wriggle. Don't twist it, because if you twist it, your scones will end up like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We're going to pop our scones on a baking tray like that. As I say, we should get 8 scones nicely out of this. So keep on dusting your cutter and taking this out. So as you can see there, I measured them last time I made them, and they were 2 centimetres tall. Now you've got a whole pile of your scone mix left there. Give a little bit of a dust on your board again. Mix it all back up again. Flatten it out to your 2 centimetres and just cut out the last ones. So that's 6, 7, and the last one. You always find you've got a little bit left over, but to be honest, I always call that the chef's bit, and I always keep that neated anyway. That's our last little one there. So that's our 8 scones. A little bit left. Just give it a roll and pop it on your baking tray. Now these are going to go into the oven for 15 minutes, and then we're going to check them. Now, if you wanted to make savoury scones, that's my oven peeping ready to go. If you wanted to make savoury scones, and you'll see in the recipe at the very end, instead of adding the sugar to your scone mix, add 50 grams of cheese instead, and a teaspoon, half a teaspoonful of salt, and that will give you the savoury scones. That's your basic scone recipe. You can do all sorts with it. You could add some cherries. We normally have cherries in our house in our scones, but unfortunately at the moment with problems here in Northern Ireland getting food, there aren't any cherries available, so you could use cherries, you could use dried fruit, all sorts of different things. So we're going to pop these in the oven now and put the timer on for 15 minutes. So there we have our scones looking lovely and browned. There's really a very, very simple way to check that your scones are done. If you lift them up and you bang them like that, you should hear a hollow sound. If you don't hear a hollow sound, then pop them back in the oven again for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to put these on a tray to cool. Now some of you might say I don't have one of these fancy trays, but if you look in your oven, you'll find your grill pan. And on your grill pan you'll find one of these. Perfect, the answer. So we're just going to set our scones out on there, and we're just going to let them cool. I worked out there that this batch of scones costs you 50 pence, and that includes the electricity. What I didn't say earlier on when I was talking to you was that the flour I used was just a supermarket own brand. Sugar, again, a supermarket own brand. So there's no need to be buying really, really expensive flours or sugars. The supermarket brand is perfect for the job. So, hope you enjoy with a little bit of jam and a little bit of margarine or butter. Perfect.